Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 9th and tonight's movie is Body at Brighton Rock. This is a 2019 horror thriller movie written, directed, and produced by Roxanne Benjamin. The plot seems a little bit similar to Last Shift from the previous Horror Nights. A young woman who doesn't seem to get a lot of respect needs to prove herself by going above and beyond the call of duty in her field. But instead of a cop, she's like a park ranger or something, and instead of protecting a police station from the ghosts of inbred devil worshippers, she just has to watch a dead body in the woods. So I guess the stakes are a little lower. Last Shift was definitely a horror movie first, character arc / growth story second, but this one seems to bring that right out into the forefront. But if Karina Fontes can be as engaging as Juliana Harkavy from Last Shift, we're gonna be fine. This, I think, was the last movie cut from last year's list of films to watch for Horror Nights. I don't know what replaced it, but this was almost on the list. Let's hope it doesn't pull a Frankenstein's Army and make me regret giving it a second chance. But I'll just have to watch and see. Good news, I don't hate this movie like I hated Frankenstein's Army. Bad news, I still didn't think it was very good. Body at Brighton Rock gets a 4 out of 10 from me. It seemed really confused as to what story it was even trying to tell. To begin with, while I thought that the lead actress did fine in her role, wow, the writing did not give her that much to work with. I understand that this main character, Wendy, is supposed to be like an underdog. And obviously, as an underdog, it's okay for her to make some mistakes, but there's a difference between making mistakes and, how do I put this nicely, not being terribly competent. If Grace from Ready or Not was a main character who didn't do anything dumb, Wendy is a main character who did several dumb things. She takes a shift of like walking a trail and replacing signs from one of her friends. It's not even assigned to her. And her coworkers express doubt that she can do it, and then she goes on to prove them right. She gets lost because she doesn't check her map, and then she loses the map and doesn't notice until she's way out of range for people to even help her anymore. Actually, no, she isn't even the one who notices that she's lost. She sends a selfie, the "hey, I did it, screw you" selfie, and the coworker she sends it to has to say, "You're not where you think you are." And the dead body is also in the background of that picture, so the coworker is the one who discovers the body too. So when she reports the dead body and they tell her they don't have time to send people out before it gets dark and she's gonna have to wait until morning, she acts really sad and annoyed about it, even though this was all a series of her own choices and carelessness that brought her to that point. And she doesn't get much smarter throughout the movie. She continues to make dumb decisions. She does eventually sort of redeem herself, but it took a while. I understand the idea is that she's not prepared or equipped for this. I get it. But it doesn't take a wilderness expert to not do some of the things that she does. It takes common sense. The horror in this movie was, I guess, not terrible, but it was kind of clunky. I will say it is a pretty good looking movie. There's a lot of really nice nature shots in it, and they managed to have scenes at night where you could actually see what was happening, even though it was still dark. My main emotion after watching Body at Brighton Rock is not annoyance, it's more confusion. This movie was kind of a mess. They kind of fumbled the main character, didn't seem to try that hard with the horror, and there was this really weird twist at the end. If you want to see this exact sort of idea done properly, watch Last Shift. I was not really a fan of this. And to really go into detail why, we gotta start with some spoilers. I said that this movie seemed confused as to what story it's even trying to tell, and yeah, there really seems to be a few different movie ideas in one. It starts out almost like a sort of comedic drama about like this woman who needs to prove herself to her coworkers and to herself. There was this one character, this other guy, who it seemed was only there to be an example of, hey, at least you're not as stupid as that guy. He also meets up with Wendy in the woods at one point for a scene that was so bizarre and pointless, I almost thought they were setting up that he was going to be the killer, but no, it was just bizarre and pointless. Then when she actually gets to the dead body, it becomes more of like a survival type of thing. There's also this random guy who shows up in the woods and she has to tell him to leave. And before that, she finds an abandoned campsite. And by the way, there's a food sack, you know, the one that campers use so that bears won't get their food at night, up in the tree dripping blood. And when she has a radio conversation later, she never feels the need to mention that. She even expresses doubt at the idea that this is a crime scene and not an accident, even though she saw blood dripping from a sack in a tree. She's eventually able to set up her own little camp and make a fire, even though she does all of that after it gets dark. And then we have a scene where the dead body gets up and starts walking around. My immediate reaction was, oh, this must be a dream sequence. But then it kept going. For so long I thought, okay, I guess this is the movie now. But then it actually was a dream sequence. But then, the next scene, you see the dead body get up again. But I guess it was just her imagination that time because it didn't amount to anything. Except for her blowing half of her bear mace in the air and getting it in her face. Then the next morning, she climbs up one of the rocks and she falls, but she seems to be okay. And then when she's at the top, the guy from earlier, grabs her and tries to pull her down, and she kicks him and makes him fall. But the actual climax is her fighting off a bear. She's able to think on her feet and save herself from the bear, which was a genuinely good moment for her character. And I thought that was where the movie was going to end. They were going to reveal that that random guy was a murderer who was living in the woods in a tent and killing anybody who got too close, potentially including Wendy if she hadn't have stopped him. But no, instead the dead body is ID'd as that man. The man who talked to her, interacted with the dead body, and tried to attack her for no particular reason. Apparently, the dead body belonged to a man who had a fall and then got attacked by a bear. The implication is either that the man that she saw was the dead body's ghost, or they're in some kind of weird time loop, but either way, it all doesn't feel that necessary. It's not like this twist ending tied up any of the loose ends. If anything, it raised more questions. This is what I mean when I say that the story of Body at Brighton Rock was really messy. It's like 2 or 3 ideas merged together. While I certainly didn't like this film that much, even at its worst, it was just kind of annoying. For the most part, I can see what they were going for, and I can see that effort was put into it. It's just, it was all kind of confusing. To me, it wasn't terrible, but it also wasn't good. And with that, I'll see you tomorrow.